Happy Easter, drowning readers. I had just gotten home the other day from my vacation. I went to Tropical Island, made a few posts. You're welcome to read them. I think I officially crossed the jet log. I think I officially crossed the jet lag off of my list. If this had been a TEDx talk practice or something like that, I probably would have deleted the 27 seconds that I'm in right now, but I'm real with you here, and that reality and that vulnerability is part of this next post. I gave it a little bit of thought as I lay in bed, and I did go to the bathroom and put on a little mascara and a little eyebrows, but everything else that you see is me in my natural form. I did get a little tan after a lot of burn. What I wanted to talk to you about today that has been on my mind and is on my mind is the reality that I continue to live as far as exclusivity. I had given a video, not a video, but I had made an audio teaser that I haven't even posted yet on the blog that might accompany this post. In a moment of vulnerability the other day as I was getting ready to leave. I live in a place where I do not have immediate access to any of my family on my side. It's all my former sweetheart's family. And since we have separated, I have felt more exclusivity. A lot of that is self-chosen as a means of self-preservation, to protect myself from the reality of the opinions of others that continue to remain harsh, insinuations and messages that are given both directly and indirectly. I carry scars, and this I wrote a powerful poem about the origins of my advocacy, and I reference it quite a bit because it was the transitional moment in my life that happened just last summer when I knew that I was going to be a mental health advocate. I have other scars that I will show you if you can't already see them. And they similarly are the derivative of my abuse to amphetamine in the form of Adderall. On my face, the scars I carry and the scars that I show you now is part of the reason why I'm not celebrating Easter with my former sweetheart's family. Not all of the reason, but part of it, because even though I am proud to share them with you now, and to the world in turn eventually, because this will be available to anybody who wants to see it. The reality of our day is I can be a future author of 6 books. I can be a passionate healthcare advocate and a wellness blogger. I can be excited to be on a famous red dot on the TEDx stage, and I continue to be, but the internal narrative that haunts me today is something that I'm about to share with you externally. Why can't you go? I say to myself within the last few hours, respectively. Why don't you go up the hill? Why don't you see the family? You love those cheesy potatoes. It's your favorite. You love ham. You haven't seen your family forever. You know you're not afraid. You know you're not ashamed. But the internal narrative ensues. You just got a tan. Your face is tanned. And guess what? I learned something, drowning readers. Amphetamine tans don't tan. Amphetamine scars don't tan. See what I mean? No. These the scars that I hardly reference because I wear makeup when I do my posts, as do most women. These don't tan. These are amphetamine scars as a direct result of my abuse of Adderall. And I'll tell you how I got them. They're on this side too, not as pronounced. And ironically enough, they look worse in real life because of my tan. You can't really grasp the severity of them My fairly light Bare Minerals makeup that I wore when I went to my vacation was too light. I was worried to this day in my internal narrative. Even if I put my makeup on, I told myself, they'll see my scars. They'll make assumptions. They'll think I'm using again, despite my 4 years of sobriety. Strict sobriety from amphetamine abuse in the form of Adderall, from polypharmacy abuse. I don't choose self-exclusivity where I live with his family to be spiteful. I don't enjoy the option of self-exclusivity. And what is important to know is that so many others like me do not. We don't like being alone. You know, that is why when they chose exclusivity as a method of reform, it was so painful and so confusing. The fact that I continue to this day is probably confusing to them in turn. And I imagine, and I can only speculate because I don't go, that they show some animosity perhaps. And this is just speculation. This is not fact. This is just merely me being real, speculating, because I don't want to be petty, and I don't want to be bitter, and I want to move on. And in so many ways I have, despite my inability to heal from the lack of accountability from so many of my family in turn. I want to be focused and concise on my subject matter for this precise video because I do tend to stray. I got these scars that marred my face after I suffered a miscarriage in March of 2018. It was something that was very, very painful for me. And everyone deals with grief and loss differently. No one really talks about the intense grief of miscarriage unless you have the unfortunate ability to join that club that no one wants to join. I joined it in March of 2018, and I cried every day for over 2 weeks. It was awful, and I wasn't very far along. My sister had had 2 miscarriages that didn't get received very well as far as empathy from the family. And my mother had had 3. And she had told me at some point that she didn't grieve quite as intensely as I had, but everyone is different. For me, it was crippling. But more importantly, something had changed in my former sweetheart that day. I have mentioned that my former sweetheart suffers from bipolar depression, and I want to be respectful when I refer to him. That's why that is indeed the title of my 4th book, My Former Sweetheart, which bears that reference. But because of my miscarriage, it triggered a depressive spell in him, and I had wanted to grieve together with my husband the loss of our small child. I believe it was only 10 weeks along. But I was so scared to miscarriage naturally that I chose to have a D&E procedure the next day because I was so terrified to lose my baby naturally and to experience that. It terrified me. I did not treat it flippantly. And I remember waking up from my twilight sleep asking the doctors, could you tell that it was a baby? Could you tell that it was my child? And that would have been my 6th child, and since then I have been graced with the beautiful little girl who is the final piece of my family. Working in healthcare and knowing full well the progression of life within the womb, I knew that it would have been discernible that indeed there was life. But because of the tactfulness mandated of their profession, the answer that was given to me was no. No, we could not. Being sedated as I was, I took that answer in stride. I don't think there would be a doctor out there who would say, yes, we could tell that the life we just took from within you was a child. Anyway, it triggered a depressive spell in my spouse, and he retreated into his own damaged reality and his own damaged mind in turn. The details of which I will spare you. It is his story to be told. But there were repercussions of his illness, because my story is not a singular story about addiction. It is a mental health crisis that we are facing. I am a mental health advocate. Bipolar disorder, narcissism, addiction, attention deficit, I can't even say it, ADHD, the medication that I abused in turn that marred my face. They are all in my family. They all have their bouts. They all have their ups and downs, and they're all interrelated. I could not grieve with him, and he isolated into his own world, and I was so depressed and so distraught and so sad. I had 5 other children to care for. I fell back into my demons. I got back on the Adderall because, and only because, it was a synthetic form of happiness. I could not cultivate any organic happiness of my own accord during that critical time in my life, because my husband had retreated into his own damaged mind. Because I had 5 other children to care for, the amphetamine enabled me to play and to laugh with my children. It gave me the synthetic energy to do things with them and to divert their attention away from their father in his grief, in his unspoken grief. I did pay the ultimate price for my amphetamine abuse. And if you look closely, you will see yet again. Because the amphetamine that I had took in such high quantities marred my face, these scars were once painful, pustulous boils. Hard. Think of the biggest and the most traumatic zit you've ever had in your life. And then imagine that all over your face. Big, wide circumferences. Hard. Pustule, liquidy. I have always been blessed with clear skin in my life. I'm one of 5 sisters. I always had the clearest complexion, and my sisters facetiously always told me to shut up when I complained about a zit, because according to them, I had no right to. So you can imagine how distraught I was, and what was more importantly, drowning readers, I had no idea what they were. I truly didn't. I had no idea that they were the direct derivative of my amphetamine abuse. I was traumatized. I was horrified. I was scared. They would not go away. I would pick incessantly, just as anybody would with the normal zit. You know, everyone does it. They would grow back. They would get bigger and tighter and firmer so much that I couldn't even, smile or, oh, it was horrible. I went to the ED and I was distraught. I went with my mother-in-law, and they had asked me, do you take meth? And this is where I'm going to talk about deflection, denial, and diversion. This is what addicts do. And I was very much the addict, just like everyone else. I deflected, and I got defensive, and I denied, because that is what addicts do. I said no, defiantly. I live in an area where methamphetamine is actually very prevalent. I had once been accused by a family member that I had resorted to going to illegalities as far as methamphetamine abuse intravenously. I never did go that route. That's not my personal reality. And I've already established that the scars I carry are the same derivative of those who go that avenue. Everyone is different. I'm no better or no worse. I looked up at this ED doctor and I said, no, I'm not a meth head. Then that is what I said. I was abusing amphetamine to such high quantities that my face. But in that moment, being the defensive drug addict that I was, you can see. And I was scared. And I can tell you I was confused. And I can tell you that I was hurting and I was incredulous because I was wondering why the doctor wasn't more empathetic, to tell you the truth, being as scared and distraught and vulnerable as I was right there in the ED. And it is good to have a professional bedside manner. It really is. Everyone is different. It is crucially more so, I feel, to have an empathetic and professional bedside manner with drug addicts because they're scared and full of shame. I'm rambling in my passion, and this is what I do. I have no time limit on my blog. I can speak to you freely. This is unscripted. I never script out my blog posts to you. It's Easter. It's a time of rebirth, and I'm here alone because I chose to be. Not necessarily because I wanted to be. I'm still tired. I still am adjusting from my vacation. But the reality is, I didn't feel comfortable going up to be with my family. I was afraid. So often I say that I've abandoned my fear and I've abandoned my shame. We never can do so entirely. Not entirely. I've largely abandoned my fear and I've largely abandoned my shame. But in moments of vulnerability, such as now, as I found myself on this day, knowing that amphetamine scars do not indeed tan, I was succumbing to my internal narrative that does not cease. And in my thought leader program that I am in right now, preparing to give a TEDx talk, I'd had a colleague say that I was no longer an addict. And I did clarify. I said, I assure you I am. And I'm not too ashamed to admit that I am, because this book series that I'm writing, and what makes it special and unique, I feel, is that I'm not writing about a point in my life that I've overcome in my entirety. I'm not writing about a story that I view myself as wise enough in the eyes of the world to tell it. I assure you, I am not. This is an ongoing story that has a surprise ending that I don't even know, and that's what makes it so engaging. I am an addict. I love myself, and I'm trying to teach everyone else who suffers like me how to love myself. I do love those funeral potatoes, and I might just have to go out to the store and make my own. I do feel that exclusivity, it has been spoken to me, and it has been insinuated that they care about me and that they have my best interest in heart. But then the things that they say immediately afterwards and the things that they do. I'll share with you that audio teaser that I had recorded a couple days ago in my moments of vulnerability right after this video, and you will understand and you will see. It is real and it is prevalent. And even though Easter is a time of rebirth and celebration and new beginnings, I'm still bound by my past. As strong as I am and as free as I am and as excited as I am to help the thousands and the millions of me who suffer, and the thousands and the millions of more of parents and friends and loved ones who want to help them. I have so much more to share with you, but it'll have to wait, drowning readers. Until next time. Key takeaway from this nearly 20-minute video. Resist the temptation to give across the aura of exclusivity, because addicts are extremely aware. They are extremely intuitive. And as you will soon see in this audio teaser, no words need be spoken. If you find that you do not have the right words to say or not to say to your loved one who suffers from addiction, if you say nothing at all, just be careful. Exclusivity is crippling. It crippled me, and it can cripple them. Do not deflect, do not deny, and do not divert your own accountability when it comes to their healing.